We have the Nasdaq at a record high and the S&P is trying to make a new high. Well, let's talk about the markets with Arian Vojdani. He's the investment strategist at MV Financial. So, Arian, what is driving the market sentiment today?
I would say it's more of this optimistic narrative you've seen for the last couple of weeks with the vaccine news, people seeing this light at the end of the tunnel type mentality for COVID. Markets are looking far ahead, thinking, trying to get in before, the markets really take off and economies around the world recover. I think you're seeing different positive upbeat news. Markets like Janet Yellen, markets are liking the decline in unemployment numbers, but still it's all a part of this big optimism trade around vaccines.
And I'm wondering, what do you make of the recent market action? I mean, because we're seeing small moves. A small move yesterday, we're seeing a small move today. What does that tell you about how investors are feeling?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You're seeing the kind of regular market movement day to day, right? Yesterday we started off a little flat, negative. Investors take stock, they take a breather, the market takes a breather. Some people sell off the top, so you're going to see that kind of interplay back and forth until we really start to see more and more money come in off the sidelines. And I think you'll see days where we have these bigger protracted run ups, or maybe even the other way shortly. But you'll see kind of more inching movement throughout the end of the year, I believe.
So I know you are buying, or you or your firm buying equities again. So tell me, where are you putting that money to work?
Yeah, so we started this year, just to back up for some context, we started this year pretty conservatively. We didn't see the COVID scenario playing out. It played out. We took opportunities where we could to really become defensive. Today, or for the last month, 2 months, we've been taking opportunity to buy back into sectors of the market that we were not a part of at the beginning of the year. Small, mid caps. We're looking at international and emerging markets as well in targeted sectors of those markets to buy back in for a long-term play. I will caution investors. Strength is still here in the U.S. That's still the core of our allocation. We think there will be rough and choppy waters ahead until we get back to this normal that everyone is looking for. But we think that you have to position yourself for the long term, and that's why we're starting to ramp up our exposure again.
And I know you're cautiously optimistic on equities. So what would it take to move you either way, either more optimistic or less optimistic?
Well, so when I say cautiously optimistic, I think we're optimistic intermediate, long term. It's the short term that worries us. And I think when we tell our clients, a lot of investors are forgetting that there is still a time frame before vaccines are distributed, before people are back to the world is back exactly the way it was. Still going to see pain play out in the economic numbers and potentially shock the market. And we're going to see volatility, because volatility is not just downside, it's also upside. We're seeing that right now. So we think that from here to there will be more moments of like I said, rough and choppy waters. So that's where my cautiously optimistic sentiment comes in. As long as we understand that we're positioned for the long term, from here to there will be some challenges ahead of us if you think about COVID.
And so is there any sector, given that scenario, is there any sector that you just are just going to stay away from until you get a clearer picture of the both the economic landscape and the, I guess, the COVID landscape?
Yeah, well, great question. I don't think there's any specific sector that we're totally hands off on. I think we're looking more holistically. We don't want to buy into companies that are too expensive. We don't want to buy into things that are too speculative. Companies that will continue to be challenged by the COVID/post-COVID environment are ones that we will be staying away from. Obviously, we're sticking to, on the fixed income side, that's become very unattractive in many ways, but that's not somewhere we want to start to chase yield. And I know a lot of people do that and take more risky bets. That's something we'll definitely stay away from. We're looking at fixed income as solely a capital preservation play, and really more of the same. I think it's really important that investors take stock of the whole market and don't get too fixated or get too bogged down in one sector. That would be what I'm thinking at this moment.
All right, great. That's Arian Vojdani. He's the investment strategist at MV Financial. I'm Conway G. Gittins, and this is Reuters.